Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you to QUp as well for the invitation to come and present. Thank you as well to Rupert for the very interesting presentation. You've touched several subjects already that I will, be discussing as well. So thanks for that introduction. So my name is Joris Dehennin. I work for Hout Info Bois. Well, the introduction was given already. I am a technical advisor. That means I give technical advice to architects, to end users in general, on how they use wood, the material in general. A second function of our organization is the promotion on a national level. So in Belgium, we are responsible for the promotion of wood. And also, it's already been mentioned, we work together with the Belgian Timber Confederation to represent the sawmills and the forestry companies and the lumber merchants in Belgium as well. So today I will be talking about Belgian sawmills, about a number of problems and challenges that we are experiencing today in Belgium, we are observing in Belgium. And I will also go on by giving some possible solutions that we are implementing in order to be able to cope with these problems and challenges. I do have to mention, just a side note, I'm not from around here. This is my first time in North America, actually. So I'm not very familiar with the North American market either. That means I will be presenting these problems, these challenges to you. It's very probable that a number of these, maybe all of these, will be similar in your case. If that is so, then it may be interesting to be able to compare the solutions we are putting in Belgium to cope with these problems and make a comparison with the things you are doing here to handle these challenges. So that's about the overview of the presentation. Let's get started. I'm going to give a short introduction. I'm aware that not all of you will know where Belgium is situated exactly. We're a very tiny country. This is where we are right now, Montréal. If you cross the Atlantic Ocean in Europe, that's about where Belgium is situated. I'm going to skip this one because we're still too small to actually be able to see well where we're situated. I'm going to use this map. Brussels, our capital. You will have heard of Brussels, I suppose. There's a very big trading port we have as well, a very big international trading port. The port of Antwerp will also be a very important factor in some of the things I'm going to say next. To the south, we have France. To the east, there's Germany. To the north, the Netherlands. On the other side of the channel, the UK. So that's where we're situated. On the map, you can also see where the forest is situated around us, in and around Belgium. It's the southern part of Belgium where we have some forested area. In France, obviously, and Germany, Luxembourg as well. Very quickly, some basic numbers. The forest cover in Belgium, we don't have a lot of it. It's just 23%. If you compare it to the European average, the EU28 has an average of about 43%, which represents about 182 million hectares of forests in the EU. If you compare these numbers to Canada, I went and looked on the website of Natural Resources Canada, so I think that's a source I have to consult. You guys have about the double of the European forest. You come in at 360 million hectares, I believe. Just a couple of numbers to put things into perspective. Also in Belgium, if you look at area, we are at about 50-50, 56% hardwoods, 44 softwoods. And we harvest about 4.5 million cubic meters of wood annually. The main hardwood species that are interesting, commercially interesting in Belgium and around Belgium are European oak, beech, ash, poplar, and birch. There's a number of other species that are less interesting, but that are also exploited. So second part, problems and challenges. I will just highlight some of them. Afterwards, there will also be a number of solutions which apply to these problems and challenges as well. The first slide, I'm gonna start right here. This is actually a bar plot, a 10 years time bar plot, spanning from 2005 to 2015. What this shows is the number of hardwood sawmills that we have in Belgium during that period. You can see in 2005 we had 82. By 2015 we had 53 left. That's a decrease of about 30%, it's about a third, even more that we lost in 10 years' time. So that's actually a serious problem. There's a number of factors explaining this, a number of factors that are important, that have an impact on this. If you look at the number of employees, which is the solid line, that's even worse. We lost about half of those employees working in those sawmills. So that's a very serious problem that we have to address. If we don't do nothing, then the damage to our hardwood industry will be gigantic. A second point is the demand for certain key species. I'm talking about beechwood. In Europe, in general, it's always been a very important species commercially. That demand is going down, actually. The wood is just getting less popular. It used to be very popular in the past. That's steadily going down. We have a lot of this beechwood, so if the demand goes down, that's actually a problem we have to address as well. This slide, well, it's been discussed in the previous presentation as well. That is that in Europe in general, but yes, in Belgium, in France, around Belgium, we are experiencing very high pressure on the market due to the export of unprocessed logs to Asian markets. So I put this in a fancy illustration here about what is happening. The logs get exported to Asia. The value gets added in Asia, so they make furniture out of it, flooring and so on. And a part of those products, not all of them, as we have seen in previous presentations as well, a part of that gets imported back into Europe. If you put yourself in the place of Europe, this is quite an unfavorable position to be in, especially if you're a sawmill or a processor of those logs. I'm talking about European oak here, but poplar as well. This image just to show you how in the last 15 years that exportation has increased. I'm talking European oak here. You should focus on the green line. The blue line is not that important since we do a lot of business with France and neighboring countries. We're just a small country, so it's inevitable. The exportations really picked up in 2002, 2004. And if you look now in 2015, there was a peak. 2016, it's about the same. We export more than 200,000 cubic meters of European oak logs, unprocessed logs, well, mainly to China. This is a big deal if you know that the Belgian forests only produce about 250, 300,000 cubic meters. So the vast majority just gets put into containers and is shipped off to Asia. Where is this wood going to? Where are the logs going to? In the past, it was also China who took the majority of the logs. But in the last years, it's really exploded. You can see that the orange bars is China. It's huge. It's nearly all goes there. As I said, we're a tiny country. We do a lot of business with our neighbors as well. So France is also in there. But for the rest, it's mainly China. Also, just one remark. This is for European oak. I also mentioned poplar. We have quite a bit of poplar as well. The situation is similar, but just that it doesn't go to China, but to India. That's the main difference. So what's the result of this? European oak has always been a very important species to us. It's always been very popular. The demand has always been very high in Europe. But now with the globalization of the market, with the demand this rising demand of China as well for these logs, we are experiencing a pressure on our domestic market that is really getting tragic. So as a result, the prices for the logs, the European logs, go up big time. But at the same time, our Belgian sawmills, they cannot translate those prices into, they cannot raise the prices of their finished products by the same amount. So you will always have a loss in margins, a drop in profitability for those sawmills, and eventually they'll just close the books. Now comes a part of a number of solutions that I want to highlight that we put in place in order to be able to deal with these problems. The solutions, as we see it, are actually twofold. On one side, you have the industry initiatives. The industry is experiencing problems. What are they doing about it? How are they solving it? The aim is very much at recreating a demand for certain species, promoting the use of wood in general, take away prejudice. That's also something we have a problem with. That's public opinion. If you talk about forest management. On the other side, there's regulation and policy. It can be on a European level. It can also be on a national level. I will briefly go into that as well near the end. So I'm going to start off with the industry initiatives. The first one I'd like to discuss is you have to find a way, or you have to be able to sell the potential of the material you're working with. All of you here, I'm convinced, that are convinced that we are working with an absolutely marvelous material. It's got a lot of advantages, a lot of differences with other materials as well, which makes wood, a natural resource, actually quite unique if you look at a number of applications. So there's this huge potential for wood in a large variety of applications. I just put a photo up here of window frames. I think it's the same in North America, but in Belgium, in Europe, where I live, the requirements for energy efficiency of housing get stricter every year. So the characteristic that wood has, that it's a more insulating material than other construction materials, is really a big advantage in that regard. Window frames and construction in general. When we talk about construction, I noticed the past days that timber construction in North America is quite different from timber construction in Belgium. Well, to start with the scale, the market share. We build today about 10%, if we talk about single-family houses, it's about 10% that we build in timber. It's an improvement already. We used to have about 5-6%. We got up to 10%. You cannot compare this to Canada and North America. I think it'll be right 80, 85, 90%. So there's a lot of potential on that market as well. We have a lot of space to maneuver, if you will, replacing those other materials. Yes, also, I am aware that we are in the Hardwoods Seminar. All I'm showing you is pictures of construction in softwood. Just imagine these things being made out of hardwood. Rupert has mentioned this in the previous presentation as well. In Europe, the timber industry is highly innovative. We are looking for ways to incorporate hardwoods, the hardwoods we have, in construction in general. For example, the CLT has been mentioned. That's why I thought it was important as well to mention opportunities or solutions in that market as well, because in the near future, I'm convinced that hardwood CLT is going to be a product you can find quite often on the market. So a large field of potential. This is a photo that a colleague of mine took from the expansion of her apartment in Brussels, a very densely populated area, a city with high-rises, 5, 10 stories, and so on. How do you expand your home or your apartment in such a situation? You're living in an existing building with an existing foundation. You just can't put 2 more floors on there that are made out of a heavy material, out of brick, out of concrete, whatever. You need a lightweight material. There's a lot of potential for timber in that regard. A second point, which is part of the solution, let's say, is being present at fairs and exhibitions. Really give some visibility to the material. This is very relevant in Belgium, where I mentioned 10% of our construction of houses, just 10% is in timber. So if you can be present there at such events where the big public is walking around, you will definitely attract people to your booth, which you can convince of the technical properties of timber. Many people don't even know in Belgium that it's possible to build your house out of a timber structure, for example. It's something I really like doing as well because of the interaction with a variety of people, with architects, with people who do projects in wood, but also just with the big public. For professionals, it's also interesting being there. They can share know-how, the one with the other. Companies will also display their latest innovations and so on. So it's very important, these type of events. Yes, this is a slide that I actually had to put in the problems section. I already mentioned we have a problem with public opinion if we look at forest management in Belgium. I think that's also going to be the case in North America, but to a lesser extent. This is actually the result of people living in cities nowadays. They actually have lost, or at least partially lost, their link to forests, to nature in general. And if they go out once in a while and they walk through a forest, they see a man with a chainsaw cutting down a tree, they're going to cry murderer. So they just don't understand why it's necessary to manage a forest, or what products a forest can give. This also obviously relates to wood. So that's quite a problem. If you walk around in Brussels and you ask a random person on the street to imagine a forest, well, this is about what he will be describing. This is a virgin forest in Finland, I think it is. Really good for biodiversity. You see a lot of animals, fungi, plants, all you want, but this is not a forest that is meant for production. In a Belgian context, this is not realistic. We don't have virgin forests anymore. How do you solve this? It's actually not that simple because it's a mentality change that people have to undergo. Well, part of the solution, again, is going out there, educating people, telling them or informing them why it's necessary to manage forests, what happens if we don't get wood out of the forest anymore, what forest is composed of, and so on. Another partial solution to this, or an initiative that can really help with this, is the labeling as well, FSC, PEFC labeling. That way an end user or a client buys a product which has a label on it. They don't have to understand what sustainably managed forests, what it actually means. They know they're doing a good thing buying those products in general. yes, this is something I just put in here. It's not really a solution, it's rather an opportunity for well, the timber and wood industry in the entire world, I think. At the same time that people are losing their link to the forest and to nature, we actually observe that in Europe, they grow more environmentally aware in their choice of materials. This is a very big possibility, opportunity for timber in general, because we're working with a very eco-friendly product in the end. An important one as well is stimulating the local industry. Develop, expand local markets, the formation of short supply chains. We think it's very interesting or very important to do this in order to guarantee the existence of our local sawmills. If this local wood milling industry is to keep existing, it will most definitely help if they have local markets to sell their products on. In the southern part of Belgium, they came up with a label as well, Valocal. They put it on finished products so that people know if they buy this product is made of a resource that is locally sourced, that is locally milled, that's also locally sold. This type of thing really talks to the public. This really helps in order to be able to sell your product as a sawmill. Another topic I wanted to discuss is the valorization of certain species, certain types of wood in areas or application where they are not really found today. This is an example of poplar, hardwood, being used in construction in France. We have this local material, this poplar. We can mill it locally, and we use it locally. Stimulation of this local industry, local economy. The last example of this is the renovation of a plaza, for example, in the southern part of Belgium. It's something we advised on a couple of years earlier. The decking was made out of azobe. It's a tropical timber species. Very durable, but in the end it was degraded. It had to be replaced. So this is what it looks like today. We advise to use a local wood, a local tree species, wood species. It became European oak in the end. It's absolutely beautiful. We are convinced that it's very durable as well. So again, stimulation of this local economy, local industry. These are very important projects for our local sawmills. Well, a big topic as well is innovation. Rupert mentioned it already in the presentation that the European wood industry in general is a very innovative industry. These pictures show automation, robotization, robots that a sawmill is using nowadays. Yes, this picture also, the same sawmill adapted some of those machines to be able to form complex shapes, if you will. You can see an oak log that has been transformed into a spiral load-bearing beam, if you will. If you look at the roof as well, it's again softwood CLT. My apologies, but this picture it's more obvious. They can produce these panels that are deformed or that are shaped. They are actually deformed in 3 dimensions. So this is really interesting for designers, for architects. This is a way for this sawmill to be able to talk to different people, to open up new markets and so on. This is something that helps them sell their products. Thermally modified wood, I haven't talked about it yet, so here it is. This is a beech sawmill also in Belgium that's invested in an oven to thermally modify their beech. Well, the beech is going down a bit in demand. So with this innovation, they get to produce this durable, turbulently modified wood that can also be used in exterior conditions. So they open themselves up to an entirely new market. Nowadays, they sell claddings, they sell decking, and so on. Some more examples of thermally modified poplar in this case, used in sidings, in window frames, etc. This is also a picture of a finished project, a project that was finished in the UK last year, 2 years ago. Last year, yeah. Maggie's Oldham, it's the first permanent building in the world that is built, that is made out of hardwood CLT. Hardwood CLT is quite a hot topic in Europe in general. This is something we're going to. I'm not saying that all of the softwood CLT in the near future will be replaced by hardwood CLT, but it's also an opportunity here for the hardwood industry. I do have to give credit though, because these CLT panels were made up out of tulip wood, Northern American tulip wood. So at the moment in Belgium, we are investigating the possibility to use beech in these CLT panels. Also a place to put our beech. So in general, construction, hardwood construction in Belgium, in Central Western Europe, is a very hot topic. This is a structure made out of poplar wood as well. I just put in the logo here of an event that will be held in France soon, Forum Construction Bois in Dijon. It will be held in April already. Just to mention that this is a 2 to 3 day event, I'm not sure. The main topic people will be talking about here is the use of hardwoods in construction. So it's actually getting pretty important in Europe. So that brings me to the final part of the solutions section, where I will be talking a little bit about regulation or policy. What is there at the moment? More specifically, in order to solve the problem of the pressure on our markets for unprocessed oak and oak logs generally. So if you look at the EU, there is no specific rule today present which tends to control or limit the exports of these European oak logs. It's possible that there will be something in the future, but with the European Commission, it's always a slow process. Also, you'll be tinkering with trade to Asian markets, which is a touchy subject. So that's not going to be for the near future. I also want to say, it may sound a little bit negative. I may sound a little bit negative about global market dynamics, export, import. That's not at all the case. Today we live in a global economy, if you will. It's absolutely necessary. So I think the main solution to these problems is not limiting export. I don't have nothing against the Chinese importing our logs, processing them, making money out of it. Most definitely not. The actual problem is that you have to be able to guarantee the supply to your own local sawmills. I think that's what we have to really be focusing on, not on limiting exports, but guaranteeing supply. So Europe doesn't have any specific rule sets. That doesn't prevent the nations themselves, the countries themselves, individually to go and put in some regulation in order to try and control this process. Croatia, for example, it's been mentioned already. They limit the export of oak logs and products with a humidity higher than 20%. In other words, those logs have to be processed in Croatia before they can leave the country, period. France has a specific organization which they founded in 2015. It's a sort of label that companies can get. It's some sort of accreditation system. And with this label, companies will get access to exclusive sales for European oak logs. The only condition, so every organization can apply. They don't have to be French either. They can be Belgian, they can be whatever. The only guarantee that they have to give in order to be able to get this label is that the European oak logs have to be processed in the European Union. If you guarantee this, you get access to the exclusive sales. Since 2015, there's more than 270 companies who have actually applied and gotten this label. So it's in a couple of years' time. That's actually quite a lot. If you look at Belgium, well, by law, our forest products get sold by public auction, so they're open to actually everyone. In 2015, 2016, I'm not sure, very recently, we implemented something. It's called the Vente de gré à gré. I had to go and translate this into English because I didn't have a clue how to say this, but it's a restricted tendering procedure, if I'm not mistaken. So it's actually a little bit the same thing, which focuses on guaranteeing the supply of our local sawmills. Those are exclusive sales as well for European oak. So sawmills can get up to 30% of the volume they need annually in these exclusive sales. So that was about it for my presentation. A couple of conclusions. We are facing or experiencing some challenges, some problems, which I think will be very similar to the challenges, problems you are seeing here in North America. I've given a number of solutions. Very important to note that we are having, that we have a highly innovative wood industry in general in Europe, and that creates a lot of solutions by itself already. So it's very, very interesting, very important. For the regulation, there's no European regulation present to manage the problem we have for the European oak log problem. There are some national measures and restrictions. I've just given you the slides. Voilà, that's about it. I thank you very much for your attention. I think there will be some questions now, perhaps. If you have any additional questions afterwards, you can always send me an email. We will try to help you as fast and as good as we can. Thank you very much.